Hi, this video will explain the course design matrix assignment for IDT G20, which you'll start in week 2. You'll be working on this assignment over a period of a few weeks, and each week's piece will build upon the work you did in the previous weeks. To begin, it's important to understand a bit of the course design philosophy here at Delaware Tech. The foundation for any course at Delaware Tech is the college-wide approved syllabus. Now, this ensures that students can expect coherent, cohesive, and comparable courses at each of our campuses across the state. If you have not received a copy of the syllabus from your department chair or course lead, don't worry. All of our syllabi are available online at https://syllabi.dtcc.edu. Now, once you're there, you can search for your course. Click on the link and view a copy of your course syllabus. You can also click on the Adobe icon in the upper right corner to access and download a PDF version of the document. I encourage you to check this site to ensure that you are using the most up-to-date version of your syllabus before starting in on the course design matrix assignment. Now, once you've reviewed your syllabus, you'll notice that it's broken down into core course performance objectives, or CCPOs, and measurable performance objectives, or MPOs. The CCPOs are the big picture objectives for the course and are typically assessed with summative projects like exams, essays, etc., while the MPOs are the steps in the process that build up to their corresponding CCPO. Now, typically, we would assess an MPO with a formative assessment or practice activity. So as we develop our course, we want to keep these learning objectives in mind and build a course that helps students learn and practice the knowledge and skills listed on our syllabus. Now, to that end, the course design matrix is designed to work in conjunction with your college-wide approved syllabus. It's essentially your course roadmap. Now, the matrix is broken down into several columns: week, where you'll identify which week we are in the semester; mode, where you'll identify the mode of delivery for that week's content. In a hybrid course, this is particularly important. You'd want to identify whether or not this is an online session or a face-to-face classroom session. Module and overview, where you'll identify the topic of the content for that week. Student learning outcomes, where you'll identify the MPOs that are being taught in that particular week. Assessments and assignments, where you'll identify the assessment that's related to that week's MPOs. And materials and resources, where you'll list and identify the instructional materials and resources that students will use in order to pass their assessments. Now, over the coming weeks, you'll be working to complete these columns as you develop a plan for a learning unit within your selected course. So step 1 of completing the course design matrix assignment is to select a course that you plan to teach in a distance education format to use for this assignment. It can be a course you've taught before or a course that's entirely new to you, but we encourage you to pick a course that you are likely to teach in a distance ed format so that you can use this assignment to help you plan ahead. Now, step 2 is to determine the outcomes for your learning unit. Now, this step is already partially complete because those of you who teach at Delaware Tech have a college-wide approved syllabus, so your learning objectives are listed on your syllabus. For those who teach outside of Delaware Tech, you may have to develop your own syllabus. Well, once you have the learning objectives for your course, you'll need to figure out how to organize that information. Basically, you'll be chunking the learning objectives into smaller parts and scaffolding student learning, and then putting it into student-friendly language. So think about the topics or chunks of content that you instruct students on from week to week, and use that to fill out your matrix. And this will become your weekly modules. So you'll start in week 1. Maybe this is a face-to-face or classroom session where you'll identify a topic for the given week. Maybe week 2 is an online session, and you'll have a new topic for that particular week. That's step 2. Once you've mapped your module topics, step 3 is to go back to your syllabus and take a look at the MPOs. You'll select the MPOs that you think best match that week's particular topic, but make sure that you keep the same MPO number from your syllabus in your course design matrix. That way we know each week what topics we're teaching and how those topics directly relate back to the measurable performance objectives of our course. Now, step 4 is building your assessment plan, both your formative and summative assessments. Now, this may seem backwards, and actually it kind of is, but that's the key to building effective instruction. We want to start with the end in mind. So we want to ask ourselves, what do our students need to do in order to practice mastering the learning outcomes? Or how do I know they've mastered the learning outcomes? You can see in my sample course design matrix for IDT G20 that in week 1, I've asked my students to complete a discussion board to help me determine whether or not they've achieved that week's learning outcomes. Now, in a distance education course, as with a traditional classroom course, it's important that students have weekly interaction to the content, to each other, and to the instructor. That means there should be some sort of interactive activity or low-stakes formative assessment every week, unless maybe it's a unit week where they're doing a summative assessment, in which case the students would get their engagement for the week in that summative assessment. Now, once I've built my assessment plan, I can now move on to step 5, my course materials and resources. Notice that I select a variety of resources, including multimedia, articles, and other materials. This helps to provide students with multiple formats and perspectives, giving them a greater breadth and depth of the material. The textbook is just one resource. It's not the only resource. Now, as you're curating and developing resources, you'll also want to think about accessibility. There are a wide variety of resources available to you to help you make sure your materials and resources are accessible, including the WCAG guidelines and the WebAIM website. Now, we'll focus on this topic in week 4, but if you have questions or need additional support, please contact your campus CCIT office. Now, as you can probably see, the course design matrix is an involved process, but don't worry, we'll be tackling this assignment piece by piece over the course of several weeks. So in week 2, you'll complete the first few steps of the assignment. You'll pick your course, you'll determine all the modules and chunks of information for your selected learning unit, and then you'll link those topics or chunks to the syllabus learning objectives. Then, in week 3, you'll complete the next step, the assessment plan. You'll determine your assessment plan for your selected learning unit, making sure that you identify both formative and summative assessments. Finally, in week 5, you'll do your final step of the assignment, which is the materials and resources step. You'll curate your course materials and resources for your selected learning unit, making sure to keep those accessibility issues in mind. At that point, you'll have completed your course design matrix assignment. I hope you found this video tutorial helpful, but if you still have questions, please don't hesitate to contact your instructor.